DPS Report, an informative look at the past and present events of the Department of Public Safety, with your host, Jerry Jackson.
Hello, and welcome to the first DPS Report. Here to introduce the first program and discuss upcoming legislation is Commissioner Paul Reed, Jr.
As you know, troop visitation has been number one on my priority list for a long time. Our new videotape capability enables us to supplement troop visitation with personal visits with all the people in the department on a more frequent basis. This doesn't mean that we'll curtail the number of visits that we've made during the past year. In fact, we hope that we can increase them. But this is just another tool that will enable us to get information to you more rapidly and in a more viable form than just by letter. The other thing that our new video capability does is to enable us to comply with our in-service training requirements without having everybody and his dog come in every month, to Oklahoma City to receive the required training. So we think that this is going to be a real plus. We're real pleased that our new videotaping studio is completed. It's outstanding, the equipment's good, and we think that you're going to like the program as well as we like it. Now, first off, I know that since the legislature is now coming in session, you've got a number of things on your mind relative to what's going to happen to the department during the upcoming session. So I'm going to address myself to a number of those items, and a little bit later on, Captain Owen will go into more minute detail relative to some of the provisions contained in the legislation that is being proposed by Governor Nye. I would also like to take this opportunity to express to you my gratitude for the great job you've done insofar as the extra effort on 55 enforcement and the backing that you've given the governor in this regard. He appreciates it and has shown his appreciation by being in our corner on a number of things that we have not had too much help with in the past. Number one is the structure bill. As you know, since 1973, a very concerted effort has been made to try to correct this situation of the round peg and the square hole as far as making our pay structure mesh with the merit system. Now, the new program will be compatible with the merit system and will enable us to top out in 3 years for a basic trooper and DL examiner and communication personnel and water safety enforcement officers in a 36-month period, as opposed to what we've had in the past, which sometimes, as you know, took 7, 8 years. So we appreciate his support very much in this regard. The other thing that is included in this bill is the extra shifts. As you know, this gives us more flexibility, more coverage, and it also permits you on a voluntary basis to participate in this program, so that if you need to have part-time employment to make ends meet, you can do on your own time that which you're trained to do best, and that's function as an Oklahoma Highway Patrolman. So we think this is a real plus, and again, Captain Owen will cover that in more detail a little bit later on. The other thing that I think there has been some question raised about, but there's no problem on it, and that is that the $100 hazardous duty pay is in the bill and is codified, so it's an ongoing yearly self-renewing type thing. So I think that the financial package, which will be, as I said, explained in minute detail by Captain Owen a little bit later on, is something that we can certainly live with and we're pleased to have. We have the very highest hopes that we won't have a great deal of difficulty getting the program through the legislature, and of course we solicit the support of the senators and representatives throughout the state in this regard. And so far we've had very supportive activity from the members of the legislature. Now, I should also point out, since Captain Owen's going to go into the structure bill in more detail, I want to point out some of the corollary legislation which we feel is going to make your job a great deal easier. And I also want to mention the representatives that are representatives and senators that are introducing these bills for us, because some of them are going to be a little bit controversial, and I think that if any of these legislators happen to be personal acquaintances of yours or live in your district, you should express your thanks to them if the opportunity presents itself. Now, well, I'll start with one of the biggies first, and this wasn't the easiest thing in the world as far as finding an author for. It took somebody with quite a bit of courage, but that's the anti-fuzzbuster bill. The governor agrees with me that the only purpose for fuzzbusters is to violate the law. And even though it is unpopular in some quarters of the state, we are all in total agreement that any type instrumentality that has one sole purpose, and that is to break the law, should be outlawed. That's the way we feel about the fuzzbuster. And Representative Charles Elder of Purcell has agreed to introduce that anti-fuzzbuster legislation. And we have high hopes that that's going to be passed. It'll be after the battle, so in any event, why, we need all the help that we can get on it. Another bill that will be introduced is the authorization of and a definition of roadblocks and making it a felony to knowingly run one. As you know, this does several things for the road trooper. That is, if you are in pursuit of somebody that has just committed a misdemeanor, they run a roadblock and you attempt to shoot out their tires, a little bit of a sticky situation. But if you are in pursuit of a fleeing felon, then you got a horse of a different color. So that's why we are having that introduced, and that will be introduced by Representative Joan Hastings of Tulsa. The next one, and this is a biggie also, and that is allowing the commissioner the discretion to designate specially marked cars in certain areas of the state. This, with the support of the governor, will be introduced in the Senate by Senator Marvin York, and in the House of Representatives, again by Representative Charles Elder. The efficacy of the specially marked units that we have now on board has been proven very well. We anticipate that we'll, if this legislation is successful, that we'll get about 35 additional units in the specially marked configuration. So we think this is a real plus. The State Travel Reimbursement Act, we are asking that it be amended to take care of situations such as manhunts, hostage situations, where great numbers of people are called out, and then instead of having to file individual claims, it will enable us to make deals with individual vendors or entrepreneurs so that we can pay them in one lump sum, and it's just going to save a bunch of paperwork, cut a lot of red tape, and save all you people a bunch of heartburn. So we think that is a real good piece of legislation. Also, that will be introduced by Representative Frank Harbin of McAllister. We also have legislation that will be introduced that will amend the juvenile code to allow us to reach information relative to traffic records so that we can assess a penalty point for those drivers that have built them up. As you know, the juvenile code now precludes us going into juvenile records. This would correct that, as far as enabling us to ascertain and take action on the potentially hazardous drivers who have built up a number of points. It would also allow us to get to the breathalyzer information on a DUI type offense that we cannot now reach. This is real good legislation. I think you can see how helpful it will be to you all in performing your function. That will be introduced in the House by Representative Cleta Dethridge and in the Senate by Senator Norman Lamb. The next one gives retired troopers, the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, the right to retain and bear firearms. This, as you know, is already in effect for retired policemen. We see no reason that it should not apply to highway patrolmen also. And this is being introduced by Senator Jim Howell of Midwest City in the Senate and Representative Don Menser, who I don't need to introduce to you, in the House of Representatives. The next one is the requirement that registration, current registration, not title, current registration be carried by the motorist in the vehicle at all times. As you well know, it's sometimes very difficult to ascertain the proper registration of a motorist that you stop, either for some sort of violation or for just a routine check. This will be introduced by Senator Norman Lamb of Enid. The next thing, and we think will preclude a large amount of paperwork that you're now required to do. This is going to be introduced by Speaker Dan Draper, and it increases the amount of property damage from $100 to $300 before a requirement exists to file an accident report. So we think this will be helpful to you too. Obviously, inflation has had such an impact that $300 is a more realistic figure than 100. So we think that's good legislation and will be very helpful to you. The repeal of SP 9, as you know, that is the existing legislation that precludes us from assessing penalty points on an individual that is guilty of a violation that did not exceed the existing or the previous posted speed limit. For instance, if you catch a cat on the interstate going 70 miles an hour, and you can issue him a citation, all right, but we can't assess a penalty point against him because of that legislation that now exists. If we can get that repealed, then even though we can't get the attention of some of these motorists that have more money in bim gump, or they just consider it cost of doing business, they set their cruise control on 70, and they say, fine, I'll pay the 50, 60 bucks, whatever it is, but I don't care, I'm going to keep driving this way. Well, if we can assess a penalty point, that's going to get their attention pretty dang rapidly. So we think that is real good legislation. This will be introduced by Representative Cal Hobson, and we've on all of these pieces of legislation that I've mentioned, we have support of the leadership on both sides, both Senate. Excuse me. Let me have a sip of coffee here. Both in the Senate and the House, and of course the full support of the governor. The big uphill fight's going to be the retention of the MVI program. I think that we've done our homework a lot better than we did last session. We have gone to the people and the representatives and tried to show them that the bottom line of the MVI program is that it does save lives, and you can't argue with the statistic that the faulty vehicle-related fatalities has decreased from 3% to under 1% since the inception of the program. We fully realize that some of the heartburn now experienced and expressed by the general public is justified simply due to the fact that out in the boondocks they may have to drive 20 or 30 miles to find an inspection station, or in metro areas like Tulsa and Oklahoma City, they may be at the tail end of a 25 or 30 mile or 30 car line before they can get their inspection. And then when they get there, this cat says, here's your sticker, give me my $2. Well, we don't like that kind of Mickey Mouse any more than the general public does. So we feel that the only remedy to this solution is to encourage the legislature to come up with a reasonable fee that will allow us to recruit and retain diligent, well-trained, and dedicated individuals to operate inspection stations. So, as I said, this is a matter of education. We feel it's very important, since safety is the name of the game. in this department. We solicit your support in this regard. That's about all I have on the upcoming legislation. Chief Biggers is going to have a few sage comments to impart to you. And then, as I said, after Chief Biggers has visited with you, then Captain Owen will go into more minute detail relative to the program that is upcoming in this session. Thanks a lot for putting up with all this bull, and lots of luck. We'll be seeing you in the not too distant future.
In a recent promotional ceremony, Jerry Biggers became the new chief of the Highway Patrol, replacing Darrell Weimers, who had been appointed Assistant Commissioner. Here's a portion of that ceremony.
To Assistant Chief Jerry Biggers, badge number 4, from the Office of the Commissioner. Subject, promotion to Chief of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. Congratulations, effective 1 January 1980. You will be relieved of your permanent assignment as Assistant Chief of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol and promoted to the rank of Chief of the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. In this assignment, you will report directly to the Commissioner for further instructions. You will be assigned badge number 3. This promotion will be subject to a probationary period of 12 months and is for the convenience of the department with no physical move involved. We wish you the utmost success in your new position. Jerry, congratulations.